freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
In the good old days, they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily. We've become weak. The problem is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore.
And when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, rough, I said, please don't be too nice.
These aren't people. These are animals.
And I'll never forget the scene. It's not supposed to be a beautiful scene, but to me it was. It was like a knife cutting butter right through. Wow.
Let's be clear. This is not political theater. This is far more dangerous than that. This is an attack on our democracy.
We're doing a great job in Portland.
What Trump has going for him are the silly, stupid moments, because they undercut they're like the spoonful of nonsense that helps the fascism go down.
There have been a lot of analyses of the absurdity of dictators, and it is not a rare thing. They tend to be like Trump in some ways, in terms of ridiculous styles, ridiculous hair, ridiculous statements, and things like that. Look, I can't give the analysis that those books do, but it is actually tied in with the movement and why they come to trust those leaders.
So we're very lucky to be joined once again by the Jacob Borowski Professor of Philosophy at Yale University, Jason Stanley.
I am profoundly worried. I think what we're seeing right now, I saw a great tweet about this. I tweeted, the United States is going in the direction of Hungary. And I saw someone tweet, that's not true. The United States is going in the direction of the European Union, where certain states are going to be like Poland and Hungary, no more democracy, bans on anything leftist in universities, free, complete one-party states run by the Republican juggernaut, conservative judges. This is familiar from the authoritarian countries in the EU of Hungary and Poland. And then you're going to have states like Connecticut, who pretty much are, functioning in reasonable ways, given late stage capitalism. So I think that's a good way to think about it. We're seeing many states. I mean, Florida's law to illegalize against rebellions and protests. I mean, I think rebellion is a good name. My colleague Elizabeth Hinton talks about this. Instead of protest and riot, which creates a kind of mistaken dichotomy. Oh, it's a protest unless someone throws a can, in which case it's a terrible riot, which is like, if you're trapped in that, you're doing something nonsensical. So Elizabeth Hinton's new book, America on Fire, she says, if you look at Black Lives Matter and you look back at the long history, at the rhetoric, at the political rhetoric, at what the police were saying about what was going on, they're political rebellions. And political rebellions often involve violence. So, what we're having is essentially authoritarian Russia-style laws being employed against protest. We're seeing Florida. We're seeing the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, get her powers taken away. We're seeing all across the country Jim Crow style. I mean, I wouldn't really call them Jim Crow style, because they're more influenced by Hungary. They're more influenced by the European authoritarian states, but they harken back to our Jim Crow past. And then finally, we're seeing, in a kind of eternal recurrence, we're seeing patriotic education. We're seeing the thing that W.E.B. Du Bois in Black Reconstruction rails against. We see people saying, we need patriotic education to bind the country together. And Du Bois in Black Reconstruction says, history isn't about binding people together with lies. History is about telling the truth. Binding people with lies, yes, we can talk about the noble lie, but whitewashing the Confederacy, whitewashing white supremacy, and then is never going to result any good with any good. And also, as Du Bois emphasizes, it's the destruction of truth. And finally, we're seeing this terrible attack. Well, all across the world, you have this attack on this culture war against trans ideology. Each right-wing culture, America is so provincial. If you have an international perspective, you know that each country tries a critical race theory locally. They try like some culture war, and if it doesn't work, they switch to another. So Poland started with immigrants, demonizing immigrants, but then it turned out there are no immigrants in Poland, so they moved to gays. And now it's like super harsh against homosexuality in Poland, terrifying. They're banning gay couples from adopting children. In the United States, all over the world, however, there's transgender ideology. There's this focus on transgender ideology. Because transgender, because as Adam Sawyer points out, the transgender community is small enough, they can't really support themselves. And then of course, because it's the United States, critical race theory. Always, critical race theory, whites are under attack. In 1963, 46% of white people said it is just as easy for black and white members of our community to get a job in 1963. Now we're being told structural racism is over. I was like a complete misunderstanding of what structural racism is. So it's this same old theme. It is always the case that Americans want to think racism is, and because they want to think that, they don't do much to end it.